welcome to another edition of Pitch BrandTalk. I'm Simran Sabarwal. Today I'm joined by Akhil Almeida. He's the head of marketing at Bandhan Life Insurance and one of the lucky few who gets to work out of Goa. Akhil, hi.
Hi, Simran. Thank you so much for having me on this show. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Akhil, I just want to first start off with how's the year been for Bandhan Life Insurance? I mean, particularly Q4, which is probably the most important quarter for you. So, how has the year been for Bandhan Life Insurance?
I would say it's been a very positive year for us. As you know, and many people might know, that about 40% of the life insurance industry's annual business really happens in these last 3 months of Jan, Feb, and March. We also had the opportunity to kind of scale out. When we became Bandhan Life last year, we were known as another brand before then. But when we became Bandhan Life, what we did was we joined the larger Bandhan Group of companies, and that has given us access to the entire Bandhan banking network across the country. So we were in the process last year of actually setting up our touch points in about more than 1700 branches across the country. And as you know, I wouldn't say it's not luck, it was planned, but essentially we had all our 1700 branches activated by the time we really hit the peak season of life insurance in Q4, and that was something that really worked out well for us, because it was great for the first time that Bandhan Bank customers were able to see a Bandhan life insurance branded product being made available to them at a touch point that they frequent quite often.
So, how much of uptick did this association give you?
Oh, I would say
growth.
So today, I think for us the growth was really phenomenal, because this was our first foray into bancassurance as a channel, right? So essentially, and today as a business, you will see that we are, at least as of FY25, we are largely driven by our bancassurance business. But having said that, going forward, we will be having bringing in other lines of business as well. It's not like those other lines of business did not exist. So we have always had very strong partnerships, for example, with aggregators, with NBFCs. And those are the channels through which we have traditionally sold our products. Bancassurance has given us a huge level up, right, in that sense. So it's great now to be able to have multiple channels and multiple streams of revenue accessible and available to us.
Any percentage you can give us what's been the growth? Will you be able to say, point down on any figure or even a percentage of growth, say Q4 of FY25 vis-a-vis Q4 of 24 or FY25 vis-a-vis FY24?
If I did it in percentage numbers, honestly, the growth would sound geometric, because we did not have the channel to exist. So in a sense, it really was a huge level up for us. But like I'm saying, I think going forward now, the thing I'd like to say is, yes, while the growth was massive in Q4 for us of FY25, we were starting on a relatively smaller base. I think from this year onwards, really, the ambition is to scale, and to scale very rapidly. So probably around this time next year, when we're having this conversation, it'll be a much easier comparison to say, okay, fine, what is the leap that we've made now that we've already been, had a full year of bancassurance under our belt.
You mentioned, that's your rebranding from Bandhan Life, and you also came up with the province of Bharat Ki Udaan, Bandhan Se. So how would you sum up this journey, this transformation, from consumer trust to internal alignment? You spoke a bit about it, but how, it helped speed up the business also. But other than that, when it comes to consumer trust and even internal alignment, how did this entire process play out over the last 1 year?
Okay, I think that's a multi-part question, so I'll try to answer, all aspects of it. I think what people should understand about us as Bandhan Life is that last year really was our first year of existence as this brand, right? So it was a foundational year for us, right? We transitioned from being a digital first life insurance company that was known predominantly in the metro areas of this country, right, to Bandhan Life, which is now part of one of India's most trusted financial services groups. So for us, this was more than just a change in name or the change in brand. It was actually a shift in our mission, right? So when we launched with Bharat Ki Udaan Bandhan Se, right? For us, it wasn't just about having copy that sounded nice to the ear and was poetic. For us, it was a commitment. It's a commitment to the 95% of India that even till today remains really underinsured, right? And the challenge for us when we took on this mission is not to just gain market share, but really it's to win trust, especially in those parts of India where insurance still feels quite intimidating, in some cases irrelevant, and in other cases just plain inaccessible, right? So from that perspective, really this was a shift for us, not just in the way we look and sound, but also really in the mission that we kind of serve. I think the question that you asked on trust is really an important one, especially when you talk about emerging India, the part of India today that still really is not very conversant with a topic like life insurance. I think for us, trust is really the true currency, right, of life insurance. And in much of Bharat, I think much of India, but really in Bharat, that trust has to be earned. And it is not earned just through advertising or just through seeing, a nice website. Really, it's earned one conversation, one claim, or one experience at a time, right? And what we found, and what I find, very heartening, is that people aren't really averse to life insurance. I think what has happened was they just didn't see themselves, okay, in the way that it was being marketed. What do I mean by that? The policies are relatively complicated, right? The paperwork when you're trying to buy life insurance has been known to be exhausting, right? The language can be very technical. There's a lot of jargon. So the messaging for them really, for this kind of customer, the messaging was not really for them. It always seemed to speak to somebody else. So as a brand that was introducing life insurance to them, really our job was to be able to fix all of these issues, right? So really we focused on three specific areas. One was simplification, right? So what do I mean by that? It means cutting down on the jargon, cutting down on how complex certain things seem, explaining products maybe rather than putting it in a 10-page sort of brochure or document, which I know the customer is never going to end up reading, right? Can I explain it to the customer in maybe a 30-second video so that he or she can understand the core benefits? That product documentation is always going to be there, right, as a support. But really what makes them understand the kind of financial services product they're dealing with, that was this kind of simplification we were looking at. We also wanted to make sure that we were now more relevant at a regional level. I think we created, when you're speaking to metro audiences, you can get by in 2, maybe 3 languages, right? But when you're going down at a regional level, especially to emerging India, you have to be prepared to speak more regionally. So we created content in, I think, in about 8 languages. When we look at how the geographies where our channels are being accessed, even if I look at something like my website, right? Even on channels like that, really, they're coming from outside the top 10 cities now, right? So it's really linked to the spaces where Bandhan already had an established presence, and that's really where we're seeing more and more interest and intent coming from. I think the third level, so the first level was simplification. The second level was about being more relevant regionally. The third really was about accessibility, right? We can't expect consumers to adopt entirely new behaviors just because they're buying a category. When you're buying a new category, ideally you want it to be in an environment you're already familiar with, right? So what does that mean for us? It means things like, yes, you need to be available at a physical touch point, which is when I walk into, say, Bandhan Bank. But I also need to be available when they're searching for me online, right? They may prefer to actually buy the entire product through a WhatsApp journey rather than getting a message, being redirected to a website, filling out a form, right? All of this is not stuff that they were used to. So WhatsApp-based lead generation, became more and more important with us. We've changed, or enhanced a lot of our processes over the last couple of years. So today, things like KYC, the things like the application for life insurance, all of this can be done through a zero documentation process, right? Where a customer doesn't have to upload or share a physical copy of a document. You can use something as simple as just your PAN number or your Aadhaar number, right? And we can run an entire KYC process for the customer, with their permission, right? So once they approve it, then we can run it in the background on their behalf. So they don't have to, juggle a lot of paperwork for it. So when we look at it, these may sound like features that are, either physical or digital, but really for us, they are more consumer focused. They're consumer first, right? Because that's how the consumer sees it. And these are the kinds of things that help enable and build on that trust, right? The accessibility, the regional relevance, and the simplification.
India is still quite an underpenetrated market and also an underserved market. And as you've expanded beyond metros, how has your marketing also evolved from being metro and digital first to serving the tier 2 and tier 3 and below towns? What was the challenges, and did your mix or channels kind of change when you moved from from the metro segment to say the lower tier 2, tier 3 and below?
Yeah. So when people, ask us why did we take like maybe a regional first approach, how is it different from, marketing just to audiences that are in metros? I think for us and for me personally, the answer is very simple. We don't see India as one market, right? India is 1,000 conversations happening at once, right? So for example, if I go to Assam, in Assam, people are asking about savings for their children. But if I go to Bengal, in West Bengal, they want security, but they also want it with flexibility, right? In Bihar, we discovered that some buyers, especially homemakers, were asking questions about life insurance, but they're not asking it in traditional forums. They're asking it on their WhatsApp groups, right? So if we use the same creative, the same language, and the same kind of logic everywhere, we would have missed all of this, right? So for us, really, it weren't just about translating. We had to adapt, which means we had to explore new channels. We had to take that same product, but we had to give it meaning based on the life stage, the region, and really what is that pain point or concern area for that audience, right? And when you adopt this approach, really the payoff for a brand is that you're going to get higher engagement, you're going to get better quality of leads, but most importantly, people are going to feel, your consumers are going to feel like this is a brand that actually gets me, right? It understands me, it can speak to me in a channel and in a space where I am already conversant, right? So for brands, really, it's about, especially if you're looking at regional India, it's about being able to adapt. And adapt goes beyond just the language. It's also getting into the mindset of that consumer, and then trying to bring out the nuances that are relevant to them.
So you're no longer looking at India as a pan-India market, right? You're looking at different regions differently with a region-specific approach. So a lot of regional GECs in papers, newspapers, radios, etc. come into your mix automatically, right?
From a media selection, yes, but I think it goes beyond that. If you ask me, I think really it's about getting into the skin of the consumer and understanding what's going to be relevant to that customer. Like I said earlier, if the consumer in West Bengal or Bihar is asking different questions from, say, the consumer in Assam or the consumer in UP, right? I need to be able to present my product in a more contextual way to them, right? And I have to choose the channel, whether it is radio or regional GEC or, maybe physical media like print or even in outdoor hoarding. I have to choose it carefully, but also ensure that my message is tuned to that audience, right? So that's one way. The other thing is, even if you look at beyond regions, there are also segments of consumers today that are grossly, I would say, underrepresented. Life insurance has traditionally been marketed, a lot of private players at least have focused predominantly on the what we call the salaried class. These are people who have access, to Form 16s, ITRs, bank statements. All the paperwork is in order. But the majority of our country has been self-employed and continues to remain self-employed, right? And it is for consumers like this for whom life insurance has broadly remained more difficult to access, right? So when we're thinking regionally, we're also thinking about, okay, fine, how can we become more relevant to an entirely new segment of consumers who have been largely ignored by the industry, right? So self-employed really is one of those was a huge segment that we were looking at. Another segment that we were looking at was homemakers, right? I think
Okay.
today homemakers, while they don't necessarily bring home an income, they have tremendous, I would say, emotional and economic value to any household in India, right? If a household loses a homemaker, just think of, I mean, that homemaker is doing multiple jobs. They are a caregiver. They're helping to educate the children, right? They're also making sure that the family remains healthy. Very often, they're also taking care of elder dependents. So when a homemaker is, when a family loses a homemaker, honestly, that's a huge, not just emotional, but also economical impact to them. You need to hire 3 or 4 people just to do the job that one homemaker was doing. Right? And homemakers again have been largely ignored. So for us, it's about it was identifying this as a need and saying a lot of the fact that people are underserved when it comes to insurance today is because we've ignored homemakers as a crucial segment. So how can we kind of bring them under this financial security blanket that life insurance provides? So it's not just if I'm speaking to a self-employed, say, man in his 40s who's the sole primary earner of his family, it's not just about ensuring that he has life insurance cover. It's about ensuring that his spouse is also adequately covered, right? So in the event that something happens to either of them, the family remains at least financially secure.
You also mentioned that when you're going to the smaller cities, people did not realize the value or why they needed life insurance. Like when we grew up, we saw life insurance, the marketing was generally, you have to take life insurance. What would happen if something happened to, say, uh, the person who brings home the money or the man of the household, and then what would your family do? But now all insurance companies have kind of changed their communication tone also. I want to know, like, what is at Bandhan, how do you balance this purpose led storytelling with your business objective?
So for us, really, it's about ensuring that there is an alignment, okay, between what we want to achieve as a business and really what our consumer wants to achieve in their personal goals, right? We have to remember that all individuals today, right, will have certain aspirations. When I'm talking about financial aspirations, really, this is the space where life insurance can play a very key role, right? So yes, there is the pure protection element of life insurance, and that's what term insurance offers, right? But there is also a savings component, right? Whether it is a guaranteed savings component or if you're looking for a savings product or a instrument which is giving you a slightly higher rate of return. And then there isn't the investment component as well, which is what a unit link product kind of offers you, right? So from the purpose of the consumer is thinking that, okay, fine, I need to create a safety net. I also need to save in case I need access to capital. And then, but at the same time, I want to also maybe invest some of my money so I can build wealth and build a corpus for my dependents, for my family over time, right? And it's about figuring out really where does life insurance fit in these financial goals, designing products that are relevant to them. So in the past 6 months, for example, we have gone from being what was earlier just a primarily a term insurance company to introducing new products which are offering both guaranteed returns at a slightly higher rate, as well as very strongly backed unit link products which are rated which are 5-star rated as well, because they've been performing really well over the last few years. So it's about giving consumers the choice, right? When we go out and talk to a consumer today, it's not about just going out and pitching a product to that consumer. It's first understanding really where are they coming from, what do they do, who do they have that is dependent on them, what is their financial goal, and then trying to figure out which product or combination of products is actually going to help them achieve that aspiration. When you're able to create that alignment, that's when you're really going to have sustainable success. And this is really important for us, because I said financial insurance, in life insurance, trust is the real currency, right? If I sell something to a consumer and the consumer is not happy with it, he will never trust me again, but he will tell 10 other people, right, not to trust my brand. So for us, this becomes really, really essential to understand, right? So when we pitch the product, we have to ensure that is only right selling, right, and that it is appropriate for what that customer wants to achieve as far as their financial goals and aspirations are concerned.
You mentioned the word alignment. So, how are you leveraging your technology to kind of bridge the gap between, say, between the insurers and the policyholders? As I'm talking especially in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, and also your agents. So, how are you leveraging technology then in this case?
So I think when it comes to technology, really the way that we look at technology is that technology is an experience layer, right? When you're selling something like life insurance, you're not just selling a product, you're also designing an experience, right? So today, a consumer who's interfacing with technology expects the same sort of ease of use that they might get when they might be shopping for an item on Amazon, or ordering food on Swiggy, or watching something on an OTT channel, right? So really, we have to keep that in mind. It's not about incremental improvement in life insurance experiences online. It's about creating real meaningful changes in the way that we are serving that customer, right? And providing ways for them to, we are staying true to the thing of simplification, of of access, and speaking to them in a language and context that they understand, right? So the entire idea, for example, of a WhatsApp journey, so much of our conversation today is done on WhatsApp, both personal as well as professional, right? Think of it, WhatsApp in many cases has even in the corporate world today, WhatsApp has in many cases just replaced email. Things that used to earlier send an email for or call up somebody, you're now having those interactions on a WhatsApp channel, right? And if you are self-employed, all the more reason, so much of their business is done via WhatsApp, right? So for them, it's about creating journeys within that environment that they can navigate, right? So this, if we do it that way, then customers are able to understand, they're more likely to explore a product like insurance, and they're also be able to do it in a language that they're more comfortable with. When I think about how we've been simplifying things like just the KYC process, right? Today we use a video-based KYC, right? This completely eliminates the need for physical paperwork, which is one of the I would say huge stumbling blocks for a lot of consumers in emerging India, right? Today, all we need is just a selfie and the consumer's consent, and then we do all the heavy lifting in the background. Technology is the enabler for us for that, right? So what the consumer experience is really that, oh, I've just done a selfie and I've uploaded my details and I've entered my details and it's done, right? That's what they're experiencing. At the back end, we're doing a lot of heavy lifting through technology, so that's not visible to the consumer. All of the bits and bytes that are happening in the background, but it's made their journey much simpler. The other thing that we're looking at is really leveraging new technologies with AI. I think AI is evolving very rapidly, right? So today AI can add an additional supporting role, especially for things like chat support, right? People aren't always comfortable picking up the phone and talking to somebody. Sometimes they just want a quick response to something, right? So I want to be able to just type it in. I might not be in a place where I can actually have a phone conversation, right? And I don't use email. So what's left for me? I should be able to type something across. But if you look at chatbots of old, typically you can ask any one of 5 questions, and each question will give you any one of 3 predefined responses. But if you have anything outside of that, you can't ask that question, right? But with AI today, we're able to take something like a library of your product documents or your brochures, upload that into the AI, make sure it's trained well, and then regardless of what kind of question the consumer is asking, right, you're making sure that you're able to give back a response that is accurate, that is compliant, and also speaks to the customer in their language, right? and also simplifies the entire communication. So it's not like you're just spitting out legalese or spitting out more insurance jargon for them in a different format. It's simplifying it.
Looking ahead, what's your vision for brand Bandhan Life over, say, the next few years?
I think for us, really, when we started out last year as Bandhan Life, and if I go back to the brand promise, right? When we say Bharat Ki Udaan, Bandhan Se, we are not making a claim. For us, really, we're making a promise, and that promise is that we will show up where others have not been able to so far, right? We are saying that we are going to design our products for those consumers who till now have been overlooked for the most part, right? It's a promise that we will continue to keep insurance simple, we'll continue to keep it intuitive, and we want to make the Bandhan Life name worthy of their trust. So, in a way, we're just kind of getting started, we're just kind of getting off the launch pad, I think. But this belief is what really anchors us and makes it very clear for us, because for us, life insurance is not just a product, it's a promise. And we have to make sure that this promise reaches every corner of the country.
And also, what are the marketing levers which you will like double down on to strengthen, like you mentioned, customer connection, which is trust, loyalty, and also most important, customer experience? Because this is a category I think a lot of us, like you spoke about providing a seamless experience, but PFSI is one of the categories where customer experience can be really off-putting.
Yeah, so I think the way to look at it is really at first we need to understand that all of us today live in a phygital world. Okay, what do I mean by that? The bulk of our experiences today still happen in and interactions still happen in the physical world, but digital adds a very important layer on top of that, right? So let's say, for example, we're having this conversation, on Zoom. So I have a laptop open in front of me, you have a laptop in front of me. That's a physical product, right? But the entire conversation is being carried over the internet. So we're interacting with the software, right? So that's what I mean when I'm saying we operate in a phygital world. All our consumers do the same, right? They have devices, but they're consuming content that's coming, over the airwaves. So in that sense, when they're buying a product, right, so very often today they evaluate it online and then they'll go into a storefront like a bank, or pick up the phone and call somebody and have a conversation about that product. For us, it's about understanding these interactions, right? Understanding what is it that the consumer prefers, and are we able to identify any important shifts, right, ahead of time, so that we can ensure that experience is being designed for that consumer. Not all consumers are going to be the same, right? There are consumers today who prefer an entirely digital journey, right? They don't want to step out of their home or their office. They don't want anybody coming to them. They want to be able to do everything online through an app, right? But there are also consumers today who will not look at a website or an app at all. They want to actually talk to somebody that they can actually physically see on the other side of that table, have a conversation with that person before they feel comfortable, right? And there's a wide spectrum in between all of these. For us, it's about understanding, okay, fine, who is this segment that we're really talking to? Does our experience cater to that segment in a way that is appropriate for them, right? Like I said, consumers deserve choice, and also what happens is over time they tend to evolve. So the person who craves only physical experiences today may not necessarily crave a physical only experience tomorrow, right? So we have to ensure that channel or that experience is available across touch points. That's what I mean when I say we live in a phygital world. So it's about balancing that, so that regardless of where you are in your life stage, what kind of financial goal you may have, or which touch point you start with and which touch point you want to end with, we are able to understand you, serve you the right sort of product, and ensure that experience is relatively painless and friction free.
So here's hoping for a seamless experience on Bandhan Life Insurance. Thank you so much, Akhil, for your time. It was very insightful talking to you.
Sarman, it was wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much for having me.